Hey ghouls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor, and for today's video we are doing a very exciting reading vlog, and that is going to be reading dark academia books. Now, I absolutely love dark academia as a subgenre, especially when you start adding in other subgenres such as like magical schools, magical academia, or magic, or anything sort of spooky. I absolutely adore books like Ninth House, and especially in the fall. I feel like you get that back to school feeling. Maybe that's just me, but then fall is just the perfect time for me to pick up some dark academia. So I thought a lot of my anticipated releases for this year were actually dark academia books. So I figured I would do a taste test video, read only dark academia for about a week or so, and hopefully find some new favorites. Now, I did pick 3 dark academia books that are I think will be very tonally different from each other, because like I said earlier, dark academia is not necessarily just like a one-size-fits-all sort of scenario. You have everything from The Secret History to Ninth House to Bunny to If We Were Villains and the Furies. Like, there are a lot of books that have very different feels that all would be categorized as dark academia. So I didn't want to read like 3 very similar reading experiences in a row. So I picked 3 books that have very different, well, I feel at least reading the synopsises, very different vibes, while all still being very dark academia focused. So let's talk about the books that I plan on reading for this reading vlog. First up, we have The Maidens by Michaelides, and this one is a thriller, so I'm expecting it to be a little bit more fast-paced than other dark academia books that I have read previously. This, I believe, follows a college professor and a group of young women who call themselves the Maidens, or sort of a study group. Because it is a thriller, I believe there is a murder going on. This says it's a spellbinding tale of psychological suspense, weaving together Greek mythology, murder, and obsession. So we're primarily following a student at this university who is suspecting that this professor is a murderer and has murdered women before. So it sounds very thrilling, like a game of cat and mouse there. And then we also have, this seems to be very heavily inspired by Greek mythology, which is very interesting as well. One of the things that I do tend to really love about dark academia is how referential it is to other works, whether that be other books or just any sort of mythology in general. So I'm very intrigued to read this one. I've heard mixed things, but I don't think I've read a lot of dark academia that are very thrillery in tone, and I did enjoy The Silent Patient, and that was by the same author. So I'm hoping this author's second book will be a little bit better of an experience for me, because it does have a lot more tropes that I tend to really enjoy in a thriller. So that's going to be the first book. Next up, we have The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake, and this one, I believe, is a dark academia that primarily takes place at a magical school. I believe the protagonists have some sort of magical abilities or superpowers. So this is about 6 different main individuals, the Atlas 6, and it is about the Alexandrian Society, caretakers of lost knowledge from the greatest civilizations of antiquity. They're the foremost secret society of magical academicians, like academic and magicians combined, I think, in the world. Those who earn a place among the Alexandrians will secure a life of wealth, power, and prestige beyond their wildest dreams. And each decade, only the 6 most uniquely talented magicians are selected to be considered for initiation. So our 5 main characters are selected to potentially become a part of this secret society. They are told only 5 will be let into the society. It seems like they all have sort of a superpower or magical power, ranging from telepaths to illusionists to naturalists. So very excited for this one. I also really love magical schools, so I've heard really good things about this one. It is self-published, and I feel like that is going to be a very interesting reading experience, because I feel like definitely a lot of times self-published books don't have the same limitations that maybe traditionally published books do. The author has a lot more say in like cover design, and this also has a lot of pictures scattered throughout it, which is going to be a very interesting reading experience. Like, we have character artwork and such throughout this, so I'm very intrigued to read this one for a lot of reasons, because dark academia, magical school, magical secret societies are very intriguing to me. Also, I haven't read a lot of self-published books, so I'm looking forward to remedying that and checking this book out. And then last but not least, we have A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee, and this is, I believe it's not necessarily a magical school, but it is following like a boarding school that has a heavy history of witchcraft and ghost stories surrounding the school. Our main character is coming back to the school after the tragic death of her girlfriend, and she is finally, like, she took some leave to grieve, and then she's back at this school, and I believe witchy, magical, creepy things start happening. She meets a new student who is actually a like prodigy novelist, and this novelist wants to write about this school's occult history for her newest book that's coming out. So these two young women team up together to try and find the secrets out about the school's occult history, find more about it, and creepy things start happening. I've heard it's very sapphic. I've heard a lot of good things about this one, and I would be lying if I didn't mention that this one's probably the one that I have the highest expectations for, just because it has been compared heavily to both Ninth House and also Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth, and I love both of those books. Like, both of those are pretty much all-time favorites of mine, so this is getting a lot of comparisons to those. I'm very eager to check this out and read some very spooky books this week. So those are the 3 books that I plan on reading for this vlog. I do have some backups on standby just in case I start one of these and just really don't like it, or I'm just not in the mood, because I'm very excited about this Dark Academia vlog. So if these 3 aren't the books that I end up with, or if I have more time to squeeze a 4th book in there, definitely will be doing so. I do not have any shortage of Dark Academia books on my TBR, so definitely we'll see, maybe adding some more books into this vlog, or making around 2, because I really love Dark Academia books. So now that I've introduced all of the books, it's now time to go ahead and get reading. The book that I've decided to kick this vlog off with is going to be The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake. This book has secret societies, superhero, like superpower type elements, and I've heard like a very diverse and queer cast. So let's just go ahead and dive into The Atlas 6. Hello, so I am going to try to keep this short because I am currently tearing through the Atlas 6. I'm really enjoying it. I am almost halfway through this book and I am just absolutely very invested in this, and I'm really enjoying it a lot. In terms of Dark Academia and the Dark Academia components in this one, I would say it's almost very similar. It's not similar in tone at all to Scholomance by Naomi Novak. That one, I feel like the only similarity between those two is that like both magical schools or magical institutions are not like your typical institution, and they're both little magical, and they're both a little bit sinister. So like, it's not like a happy-go-lucky school where you just learn magic and leave. I can't say too much for number one, spoilers. Number two, I just don't know those deeper components yet, and I do know that this one is at least a duology, which I'm very excited to already pick up the second book in the series. So we're following 6 protagonists in here, the Atlas 6, and they are all invited to this prestigious society, the Alexandrian Society, which is basically the Library of Alexandria. It is still a real thing. It's a magical thing in this world. It's been preserved, has all of like the great artifacts and all of like the great tomes that have been supposedly lost to time. So each member of the 6 has a different magical ability, and this is a world where it is our world, but there is like a complex magic system, which honestly can kind of be confusing at first, because when we are introduced to all of our characters, like 2 of our characters, Nico and Libby, just graduated from essentially like a college equivalent, but it's like a magic school that they just graduated from. So this is our world, but magic exists, and like there are lots of magicians, for lack of a better word, in our world, and this is like one step up. Like, this is almost less of a magical school and more of like a secret society in a world where magic and magical schools already exist. So like, this is like one step further with the pursuit of knowledge. So our 6 main characters are all invited to pretty much audition to be a part of the Alexandrian Society. They have a year to hone their skills, hone their magic, learn what they need to know, and then they will be tested at the end of the year, and one will have to leave. Only 5 can remain in the society. So we're going through that year as they are honing their skills. They have some really cool magical abilities, and we are at the point where we're starting to see the characters kind of realize that there's more going on. Like, this just isn't like a fellowship or a study abroad program or just like a normal magical institution. There's something a little more sinister going on, and I, like the main characters, am very intrigued to find out more about this Alexandrian Society. So in terms of dark academia themes, we do have 6 very unlikable characters, and I will say at this point I do really enjoy 3 of them. 3 of them I'm not sold on, but at the same time, even though I don't like the other 3 as people and I don't think they're good characters, I think they're great characters, and that I'm still enjoying reading points of views from them, even though I don't care for them. So that's one of my favorite parts of dark academia. I know that's like a very common trope, is you will get very pretentious, unlikable characters sometimes. Definitely that in here, but definitely a good mix. Like, I have a hard time following a book where all of the characters are very like insufferable and very privileged, and sometimes that can happen in dark academia. There are 6 characters. They all come from like a variety of experiences, so while they're all very flawed, they're flawed in different ways, where I feel like they're not all horrible people. And I am just really, really invested. I also like the main characters are all in like their mid to late 20s. Our youngest 2 characters have just graduated college, and the other ones have all been out of college, or I don't actually know if they've all attended college, but like they're of the age where they're older. So that's like a very fun age group to read from, because you can still have dark academia elements and they're not in high school or college even. They're a little bit older, so I think it's very interesting, their perspectives on the world. I would say probably the first chapter, very confusing. I did read it twice to kind of catch like what was going on. There isn't info dumps, and I think that's very to the benefit of this book, but it is confusing to realize that it's not like a portal magic or a portal sort of magical school where magic doesn't exist and they're whisked to a magical place. Like there's a lot going on already that you kind of have to pick up on, but after that first chapter, I was just very much drawn in. You get points of views of all of the main characters. So yeah, I'm almost halfway through. I'm gonna keep reading this one. I'm very excited to keep reading and maybe finish this book soon because it is that good. I am absolutely flying through it. So I finished the Atlas 6 and if you could not tell from the clips right before this one, absolutely loved it. Yeah, I loved this book. The ending was just so, I know this is a word that gets like overused a lot, especially when it comes to like books and movies and like media, but this ending was so explosive. And I think why it really worked is that this is very slow. So if you know that you are not a character driven reader, I wouldn't dip your toes into the water on this one because this is like a whole lot of character building, world building, like all of that. It's very slow. Pretty much we have like our main plot synopsis that's on like the back dust jacket of here, and that is all you really get into like the last 70 or so pages, which just boom, revelation after revelation, and I am very excited to see the next book. I don't know if it's going to be a series or a duology, and I did just see, so fun thing, the day, was it the day? It was the day that I finished this. I actually finished this book and I saw on Instagram, Tor actually purchased the rights, like acquired this book. This was originally self-published and it's been getting such a huge hit of popularity recently that it was picked up by Tor. It's being released in hardback in March of next year. I think the sequel is supposed to come out November of next year. But again, we'll have to see because I think I had heard that before all of this news. So it'll be interesting to see if that schedule will still stay the same since technically the first book is coming out in March, even though it's already out now. But I'm very excited about that. If you are a person who maybe really hates paperbacks for whatever reason, or if you only read audiobooks, there's also an audio version coming out March of next year too. And I really loved this. I'm very excited that it's being put in the hands of more readers and just being more accessible by having Tor pick it up and release it. So I'm very excited, and that's very exciting for this author. So yeah, I loved it. I love this book. What a great start to this vlog. Also a little nervous now because this is one of my favorite books of the year. I don't know how I'm gonna top that in this vlog, so there is that. I'll probably do like another little wrap up of this book at the end of this vlog just because I finished it about a day or so ago now, and I'm just still, it's one of those. I loved this so much that I don't think that I could sit back away from those emotions and kind of give more coherent thoughts. So I'm gonna wait a little bit more, but I loved this. And then another quick note before I move on in this vlog, actually the day that I filmed the introduction to this vlog. And this vlog was actually kind of an idea that I had had since June. But Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction actually released a Dark Academia reading vlog. I haven't actually watched it yet, and I'm not going to watch it until I finish my Dark Academia vlog, just so I can avoid like really making anything similar, because again, great minds think alike. She already has hers out, but I am gonna leave her vlog in the description box of this video because I saw from her thumbnail she is at least reading these two books behind me, A Lesson in Vengeance and The Maidens. So yes, very similar content. I will be leaving her video down below. I'm sure it's going to be very, very, very atmospheric and just all of the beautiful Dark Academia vibes, because she just gives off that vibe just naturally through all of her videos. And she also just moved to Edinburgh, so her Dark Academia vlog is going to be very, very atmospheric. I can't really compete with that. I live in Arkansas, but I am doing my best. So just a quick note there. And I'm sure there'll probably be more creators, or have been more creators since this video has come out, that are doing like Dark Academia book recommendations or Dark Academia reading vlogs. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it's a very, very popular subgenre right now, but I just want to cover my bases because I did notice that not only was like the idea of a Dark Academia reading vlog similar, the books that we're both reading are very similar. So I don't know if she's reading any more than those two, but I saw those two books in the thumbnail, so I thought I would mention it. But yeah, that's one book of 3 done for this reading vlog, and I'm moving on to the second. I am going to be starting The Maidens by Michaelides. I'm starting this one next, very intentionally, because out of my 3 Dark Academia books, 2 of them have like either like a magic system. They're just like both more of like magical Dark Academia books. Atlas 6 had almost honestly like superhero kind of magic, it felt like at times. I would describe it as the Umbrella Academy meets X-Men, specifically like all of the angst around Professor X's and Magneto's relationship with each other. That's the Atlas 6. And then I know A Lesson in Vengeance does deal with, I believe, either ghosts or witches, possibly both. It is paranormal, magical in some aspect. This one, to my knowledge, is actually the only like true contemporary thriller Dark Academia. I believe, I don't think it has any speculative elements in it. So this is going to be just in the middle to kind of differentiate the 2 magical books on my TBR, and kind of split it up. This is also, I feel like, going to be a faster read for me. The Atlas 6, while I did devour that book, it is a pretty big book, and it's also very slow and character driven. This one's a thriller, so the pacing should be a lot different, should be a lot more fast paced, more plot driven. We'll see. I haven't actually picked this book up yet, so I'm looking forward to it. I am going to start it after this clip. I also am going to pick up the audiobook. I don't think I have it through Libby. I think I have it through Scribd, but I'm going to be starting the audiobook with the physical switch off back and forth. It's a thriller, so I'm very intrigued for that. I've never read a Dark Academia thriller before, so yes, The Maidens by Michaelides. Let's get started. Alright, so it is time for an update. I am about 50% of the way through the Maidens. And quite honestly, at this point in time, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts about this one. I will say I do think this is better than The Silent Patient, at least so far. That was this author's first book, so I think that the writing has gotten a whole lot better. I think there is more of a mystery in this one. I feel like, at least for me personally, The Silent Patient, there weren't enough characters, and there also like wasn't enough of like a misdirect to really stump you and like twist you at the end. Like, there were two pretty big reveals at the end of The Silent Patient. I did guess one, not the other, but the other one makes sense. This one, I feel like there are just so many more characters, so many like more people who could have done it, and we don't know a lot about any of them, and they're all like very suspicious and weird. So let me get into the plot real fast. This is about a psychologist named Mariana, and at the beginning of this book, she's in a very rough place. She has just tragically lost her husband very unexpectedly, and in a pretty horrific way, and she is trying to cope with his loss, the loss of her husband and her loss. And she gets a phone call from what is essentially, I believe it is actually her niece, but pretty much like kind of like a surrogate daughter. Her and her husband really took this young girl under their wing, and were kind of raising her, but her name is Zoe. Zoe calls Mariana out of the blue saying that her best friend has been murdered, and she's pretty sure she knows who did it. So Mariana just, you know, goes to the college that Zoe is at. It's actually the place like where she met her husband and where she went to school. So it's bringing up like a lot of those memories, but she goes to kind of be there for Zoe. And then also there are some things about the investigation that she doesn't agree with, and that she thinks they're kind of looking at the wrong people. So she's using her expertise to kind of unofficially invite herself into the case and investigate it that way. So we're following that pretty much. Her main suspect at this point, and if he's not a suspect, he's definitely like a very strange character, is one of the professors at this school. He's a Greek tragedy sort of professor. He teaches about Greek myths, and he has this group of women, young women, who follow him around and are like his special students, and they call themselves the Maidens. So that's where this book gets its title from. And there's just, if he's not a murderer, there's weird things going on with him there. So Mariana's just kind of trying to figure out who killed Zoe's friend, and potentially, you know, are they going to kill again? So that is the plot. It's a thriller, so I probably won't really discuss too much more about this plot, other than the fact that every single person that Mariana has talked to is just incredibly weird and like creepy, especially the men in here. And for that, I get it, because it is supposed to be a thriller, and I feel like a large part of thrillers and like mysteries and whodunits are every single person has to be a suspect. Otherwise you're left, you know, if you have like a bunch of really nice people and normal people and one very creepy murdery guy, then you know the murdery guy did it. But just like every person our main character talks to is very weird, and just like as a woman, just some of the people that she agrees to, you know, go to drinks with or something like that to kind of get more information out of them, I just wouldn't do. I do think, you know, because sometimes I feel like with the amateur thrillers, not amateur thrillers, but in terms of thrillers where our main character is not like a police officer or a detective or another sort of professional, sometimes I get annoyed at how much they think they can do on their own and then get themselves into hard situations. I kind of understand why our main character is kind of throwing herself at this. This is really important to Zoe. Zoe's one of the only last like living connections that she has to her husband, her late husband. So she's still really reeling from the death of her husband and really in grief. So I understand why she's channeling so much energy into trying to solve this when she is really technically not involved, probably shouldn't get involved in any way. So I do like that there are like reasons why she would get involved. Not good reasons, but they make sense because she's pretty consumed by grief. I will also say 50% of the way in for a book called The Maidens, I want more Maidens. I want to know more about their characters. They're kind of like discussed, but I kind of thought that we'd maybe be getting like a point of view. I wasn't expecting Mariana's point of view. I knew the bare bones of this before going in, and I thought we were maybe going to be following like one of the girls from the group called The Maidens. So I want more Maidens content in a book called The Maidens. And I am very intrigued. I feel like with the amount of times that her husband's death is brought up and the way he died and some parallels for his story and her story and their love story and what is happening in the present, I feel like it is going to be relevant and more relevant in just like she's processing grief way. So I'm kind of intrigued to see that. There's a lot of like Greek mythology in here, which is pretty cool. I like that. It's got a very classical sort of vibes. That academic part is why this is like a dark academia thriller. It's also set on a college campus primarily. There is a second point of view that we don't know who it is, and it's almost written in like journal entries. And as I was listening to the audiobook, it's a female narrator except for these random chapters that are very short. You're thinking it's probably the killer, and I'm nervous because the last book had it with this author, and then also our main character does work in the mental health field. I am nervous that mental health might be used as, or rather mental illness might be used as a plot twist, which I would really hate. So I'm hoping that I'm wrong about that, but those are my thoughts on The Maidens so far. It is a very, very quick read. I started it pretty much this morning and I am halfway through. So I'm hoping to finish this in a couple of hours and come back and talk some more about my thoughts. So I finished The Maidens by Michaelides and I enjoyed it. I don't actually have too much more to say about this one that I feel like I didn't already cover in my mid-book update, quite honestly. My critique about there not being enough of the Maidens in a book titled The Maidens still stands. I feel like that's like my biggest takeaway with this, is that I wish that there would have been more of the Maidens, like how we're kind of promised. I feel like, I don't know, if you name a book The Maidens and there's a group called The Maidens, you expect to have them more in there. They didn't really do much in the story, and you never really get to have like that explored as much as like The Dust Jacket would have you believe. I will say about the ending, when we had that mystery point of view, I was a little worried about maybe having mental illness as a plot twist. That wasn't the plot twist. There still was a plot twist, and I'm actually gonna try and leave in the description bar down below trigger warnings for all three of these books that I'm talking about, because this one in particular I feel like definitely has some triggers. Of course the Atlas 6 also did as well, but this one just especially because it's following like an open murder investigation, and then also the ending of this one, definitely some triggers there I feel like. So yeah, it was fine. The twist came from left field almost a little bit, but not so far left field where it's like, I don't know, like horrible. I didn't mind it. I was worried I was going to not like it. Definitely thought it was better than The Silent Patient, at least for me. I enjoyed it a whole lot more, and I thought it was a pretty decent thriller. I'm just not a thriller person, unfortunately. Like, I feel like occasionally I'll dip into thrillers when I want like a fast-paced, speedy book, and this was absolutely that. I am wearing something different, but I spilled something on my last sweatshirt, so it's the same day. I pretty much started and finished this all within the course of a day. Very speedy, very short chapters with lots of cliffhangers. So if you're looking for that, and also if you're looking for something like dark academic, but you also are more accustomed to like thrillers, then you don't want like something super character driven, super slow, definitely I feel like this definitely gives academic vibes. You're at Cambridge University for pretty much this entire book, so it definitely has like an academic feel. I was kind of hoping for, I just like slower paced books. Nothing wrong with this one. I did not like a single man in this book. I feel like that's partly intentional by the author, because thrillers, you're supposed to kind of get pulled in lots of different directions trying to figure out who did it, but this was full of a lot of just awful people, and they weren't like fun to read about, whereas like the Atlas 6 had some pretty bad people, but they were fun to read about, or just interesting to read about. This didn't have it. Just so again, my ultimate takeaway, I thought it was a pretty good thriller. I really enjoyed the mythology and like the mythology themes that were in here. I thought that was nicely done. I ultimately just kind of wanted more from the characters. I felt like all the characters were pretty surface level, but with like a very fast-paced thriller, I think this just hit 300 pages. If it's more than 300 pages, it's not by a lot. So there just wasn't a lot of characterization, and the ending, controversial. I feel like it could be one where you could enjoy every minute of this book until the ending and then just have that spoil the whole book for you, but I thought it was good. Definitely, I think that in terms of dark academia, I prefer the traditional format rather than thrillers. That's not news to me. I am really glad that I did pick this up. I had fun reading it, and I do like having it in my arsenal as like a thriller to recommend to people, because for a thriller, which is a genre I don't really find myself gravitating towards a whole lot, I thought this was really good. Now, I will say in terms of dark academia, I just feel like my favorites tend to be those with supernatural or some sort of speculative fiction element. So I'm very, very excited to pick up A Lesson in Vengeance. This is the third and final book in my TBR. This one is set at a boarding school, and I think it's called the Dalloway School, and it's called the campus. I'm pretty sure it's like a prep high school. I believe these characters are the equivalents of like seniors in high school. So this is actually the only YA book that I have on my list, but it has been compared heavily to, I think, Ninth House, and then also a little bit of Plain Bad Heroines. So I really enjoyed both of those books. We'll see. I have a lot of expectations for this one, so I'm looking forward to diving into this one. I believe it is about some sort of haunted boarding school. Yeah, so I'm gonna dive into this one. I'll check back in with you all at like the halfway point, and hopefully I love this one, because I started this vlog at a high. Nothing wrong with the Maidens, but it was a very middle of the road read. Definitely not an all-time fave, and I'm hoping that I can like squeeze out another really, really good read, maybe one of my favorite reads of the year from this video, just because I do love this subgenre so much. So looking forward to starting A Lesson in Vengeance. I did actually start it a little bit before this clip. I'm like 2 chapters in, but I'm looking forward to picking it up, reading even more, and hopefully loving this one. So let's get to reading. halfway through A Lesson in Vengeance, and I will say, out of these 3 books, I think this is the one that is most traditionally dark academia. And I say that because even though the other 2 are set at either schools or learning institutions, I feel like this one has the most like minutia day-to-day with classes and actual school academic life. The Atlas 6 is kind of like a non-traditional school format. It's more of like a research group. And the Maidens, while it did take place on a college campus, our main point of view, she does not go to the campus anymore. She's not part of like the academic life. She's just kind of looking in from the outside, even though previously she had gone to the school. So it doesn't really focus on like that sorts of academic aspects, whereas this one, it does take place at a boarding school. This one is also very apparently YA. This one I would say is definitely the youngest in tone. Our main protagonist is either 17 or 18. Her name is Felicity, and she attends this prestigious boarding school called the Dalloway School, and she has returned back for a second take on her senior year because her first senior year actually ended with her girlfriend dying in a tragic accident. So she is back trying to finish out school and is very much haunted by the ghost, whether it be a real ghost or kind of like a personification of her grief by her former girlfriend. And that is like very apparent from the first chapter. She has a lot of guilt for the way her girlfriend died. You get these vibes very early on that she feels like she is being haunted by multiple ghosts, and you have to figure out whether or not like they're actual entities or just like manifestations of her grief. So she's not in a great place. She returns back to school. She's kind of a pariah because just the essence of teenagers, I guess, coming back, the student whose girlfriend died, and redoing her senior year. Her friends have all graduated. She's trying to fit in to a place where she feels just very different from now because of her trauma. She meets our other main character. Now this is just from Felicity's point of view, but I'd say our secondary main character's name is Ellis, and she, even though she is 17, 18, that age range, is actually a published author, a wonderkind. She is attending this school even though she had been homeschooled for the rest of her life. She's attending this school because she wants to write a book about the history of the school. The school has a very interesting history of just numerous accounts of like witchy activity. The founder was supposedly descended from Salem witches, and her daughter and some other young women throughout the school's history have ended up dying in very mysterious, tragic, terrible ways. So Ellis wants to write a book about this school and the school's history, and she kind of enlists the help of Felicity to kind of do her research with her to help her understand the school's history, kind of dig deep into this very witchy sort of paranormal history, which is also bringing up a lot of complicated emotions for Felicity. So that is really, in essence, the main plot of this one. I'm about halfway through. I am really enjoying it. I really enjoy the dark academia elements in here with just like the competitive nature of this boarding school, and then also when we're discussing like these very sinister things with witches and ghosts and the paranormal and all of that. It's just very interesting having our 2 main characters dive into such a creepy, occultish type of things with like a very academic lens. They're both kind of writing either a book or like a senior thesis research paper on these things. So that is very much like a traditional dark academia book. While I don't have access to the audiobook, I'm just reading this one physically, I feel like this would be a really good atmospheric audiobook experience. It's just very delightfully creepy in a way that you would expect from a dark academia book featuring like witches so prevalently, and it definitely has like those witchy sort of vibes. Definitely a really good book, I feel like, especially for October. I mean, I feel like dark academia academia as a subgenre, really good for the fall. But this one in particular is very delightfully witchy. I really don't have anything else to say about it so far because it is very atmospheric, and what I kind of gave as a synopsis, even if you read like the dust jacket on this book, it doesn't give you too much other than that main premise, and we're still following that main premise. So very atmospheric, character driven. I'm very interested to see like how this is going to wrap up, because I feel like at the point where I'm at, it almost needs to be a little bigger of a book with how slow moving the plot is, how it's been slow moving so far. I am curious to see how this is going to wrap up and what direction this book is going to take. So I'm very intrigued to finish this one, and I will check back in with you all once I've finished it with my final thoughts. Okay, so it is now time for the final update of this vlog. I did finish A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. I ended up really enjoying this one. I know that I mentioned previously that this was one of my most anticipated releases of the whole entire year, just because it was sapphic, dark academia, had some witchy, ghosty elements to it. I did enjoy it. I don't think it's going to be one of my favorite books of the year. Unfortunately, it just fell like a little flat for me. I really enjoyed the whole entire journey of this book, really enjoyed the book itself. I would say this one out of all three feels the most quintessentially like fall and like just October vibes. This is a perfect spooky season read. I would just say that the two huge things for me that ultimately made it fall like a little bit short of my expectations were, number one, this is like not a small book by any means. It's still about 300, 400 pages. Something like that. It's 369 pages, including an epilogue, and there is a reason why so many dark academia classics are so chunky, and that's because, you know, they're very aesthetically driven and ambiance driven, very character driven stories. I felt like this one, the pacing for me at least, was very perfect up until the end. It was very, very slow, and then the ending just came out of nowhere. And I really felt like this story could have used 100, maybe 200 more pages to flesh everything out. And even once you find out certain reveals, like give it more time to breathe. So that was one thing. Just the ending just felt very rushed in comparison to the rest of this story for me. And then the second thing was, and I feel bad saying this because I don't like to use this as a critique a lot of the time, but I just wish this wasn't YA. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with YA. I just feel like this particular story would have absolutely shown had our characters been a little bit older. Because for me, the parts where I found, at least as someone who reads a lot of horror, the parts where I had to suspend my disbelief the most were not at like the paranormal or witchy things that may or may not be happening, but the way that this school is organized, the amount of freedom that these kids have, because they are all 16, 17, 18, our main cast of characters. Not even how much freedom they had, just like how they acted and like what they did. This did not feel like they were seniors in high school. I felt like this would just be a lot better if they were aged up a little bit, because like minor spoilers, this has nothing to do with like the plot at all. Like they were constantly doing things with their fake ID, like renting cars out, something I'm pretty sure you have to be 25 everywhere in the United States to do, and just like things like that where like I feel like if you just would have made them college aged, a little bit older, even given them like their own car or something like that, it would have taken me out of the story less. So there were like just like a lot of like little things like that where I'm like, this doesn't make sense for a 17-year-old to be doing, but it makes sense for like a 24-year-old to be doing. So that also, I just really wish this would have been turned into like more of like a new adult tome, as well as some of the things that were discussed in here. I felt like could have been fleshed out a little bit more with just a few more pages, and by a few I mean like 100 or so. But that being said, I did really enjoy it, and I do look forward to reading more by Victoria Lee in the future. I had a blast reading it. So all in all, I had a really good like reading week and a half, I think was how long this vlog went for. Out of the 3 books that I managed to read, I didn't have a single one that I didn't like. I felt more strongly about some than others, but all 3 of these reads I think are very solid. So just quickly ranking them, if you haven't guessed already by me talking about them, which ones I like from least to most favorite. My least favorite out of this vlog was The Maidens by Michaelides, and this one was just a little too plot driven, a little too fast for me. This definitely also felt the least like a dark academia novel, just in terms of tone and like very traditional sense of the word in dark academia, but I did enjoy this one, and I did think it was a very strong thriller. I think if you enjoyed The Silent Patient, you'll probably enjoy this even more, maybe. I feel like the ending will be controversial, but I thought that it was a very good thriller overall. In our middle spot, we have A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. This one felt the most like standard when you think of a traditional dark academia. This is what I think of. It's set at a very exclusive boarding school, so that very rich atmospheric school setting with just like a pinch and a sprinkle of supernatural witchy goodness. This is definitely the youngest in terms of demographic of the 3 of them. This is marketed as YA. The characters are the youngest in here. They act older than they do, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. So I had a really good time reading this. I can't say anything for sure about the audiobook, but I do think that this would be a very creepy audiobook to listen to. Just all around like a really fun, spooky time. And then my favorite out of this whole entire vlog, and one of my new favorite books of the year, would be The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake, and I just love this one. It's not going to be for everyone. I definitely recognize that. Whereas like The Maidens was very, very plot driven, this one's very character driven. I think a lot of people, I would say, read 3 chapters. If you don't like those 3 chapters in terms of like the pacing and the tone, I would just DNF it because it is very, very slow. The reveals in this one at the end are epic. I'm so excited to pick up the next book in this series, which should be coming out next year. And I'm also excited because this is kind of a little bit of a collector's item now, because this is actually self-pub, but it is coming out via Tor in March. So it's getting a shiny hardback, which I'm probably going to buy because I feel like the sequel is only going to come out in like a matching hardback to the other hardback, and I can just tell this is one of my favorite books of the year. This is definitely, I would say, it's got like the quirky weirdness of Umbrella Academy plus the pure angst of like the X-Men, in particular Charles and Eric, and like they're going back and forth between you know, good and evil and shades of gray and all that. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. I'm really glad. I honestly was not expecting to love this one so much, so that is a very pleasant surprise. But I'm very pleased with all 3 books that I read for this vlog. But that is going to be it for this video. Let me know in the comments down below what genres, what kinds of videos you'd like to see me read 3 books from next. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!